Hi guys, and welcome back to Beauty Fortified. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Sue and I make hair care, skincare and makeup videos for the more mature women. I also do foundation reviews, so if that's the kind of content that interests you, please consider subscribing by hitting the red subscribe button down below, and you can hit the notification bell at the same time, and that way you'll be notified of all my future videos. So today I am talking about the recently launched Clarins Skin Illusion Velvet Foundation. Now, I have only had success with one Clarins foundation in the past, and that was the original Skin Illusion, which was replaced a few years ago by what is now on the market. So I was very intrigued when I saw this foundation because they do say that it is a mattifying version of the Skin Illusion. Now, a little bit about my skin. I'm 51 years old. I do have fine lines, wrinkles, and really enlarged pores. And my pores are the big bugbear with me, and there's something that I'm always trying to mitigate, disguise, blur, fix, and I've tried a lifetime of remedies, and unfortunately it looks like they are here to stay. So whenever anything says that it's going to mattify pores, I get really excited, and because I have normal combination skin, I do like a foundation that has a mattifying effect and that stays all day. So my ultimate foundation would be one that is mattifying, that blurs pores, that gives me a good 8 to 10 hours wear, that doesn't transfer, that looks like skin. So it really is quite a big ask. But when I saw this new foundation from Clarins, I got quite excited because it ticked quite a few of those boxes. So what do they say about the foundation? They do say that it's a natural mattifying and hydrating foundation, and it does have strawberry tree fruit extract, which is supposed to be a really good antioxidant. And they do say that it has a bare skin effect. It's a natural matte, it reduces shine, it has an ultralight texture, and it lets skin breathe. They say it's makeup made for skin. So this all looks really perfect, right? So in South Africa, they have launched with 12 shades. Globally, they have come out with 28 shades. We always get a fraction of the shades that they have in their range, which is a little bit annoying because it just makes finding the perfect one all that more difficult. But I did manage to find a shade that I think is quite compatible with my skin. So we're going to go on to the application, and then I'm going to do a full day wear test, and I'm going to come back at the end and I'm going to let you know how this foundation wore throughout the day. I've applied my skincare and I've applied my SPF. Today I'm going in with the Nivea Sun Shine Control Mattifying Effect. Really love this one for under makeup. I've also applied my concealer. So today I'm using the Chanel Longwear Concealer, and this is in the color B30. So I'm just going to grab the foundation. They do say that you need to give it a shake. So I am going to shake it up. I am in the shade 109C, which is also known as wheat. And I have a little kitty cat playing under the desk if you hear any noises. So just shaking that up, I'm going to take one pump of this, and that's one pump. So I'm just going to dot it around my face. And they do say, or I have read, that you need to apply it with a brush. So it is quite a thick liquid. It's not a runny liquid. So taking a foundation brush, I'm just going to start buffing that in. And you do need to work quite quickly with this as well, because it does tend to dry down quite quickly. It is blending quite beautifully with the brush. I'm getting quite a smooth blend. And it does oxidize slightly. So I think that this one oxidizes about half a shade. So you do need to be careful of that. And I do find that's quite a common thing with mattifying foundations when they do dry down. Some of them do tend to oxidize. And you also need to just be careful when applying it around the brows that it doesn't get into your brows. I have got a little bit in my brows, but I'll just brush that out with a little spoolie. And also blend it around your lip area and sort of onto your lips so it doesn't dry down just at your vermilion border and create a little bit of a shadow there. So definitely blending is key with this foundation. And I can say it's giving me a very sheer effect. So definitely a very, very lightweight foundation. It is evening my skin tone. It's not covering anything radically. So I can still see my skin coming through this. I can see where I've got little red marks. So it's not doing anything to cover those. But it is giving me a really beautiful, very even skin tone finish, and it does look very, very light on the skin. It's definitely not exacerbating my pores because there is no shine to the foundation. The shinier the foundation, the more it exacerbates my pores. So it is doing its damnedest to blur them. I can still see them, but that is to be expected. But it's definitely doing something to help them. That I can say for sure. So I'm going to apply a little bit more to my T-zone, or this area here where I do have the most pores. I do have a little red spot here which I am going to see if I can try and cover. So I'm going to take just a dab more, so just that much more. That's about 2/3 of a pump. And I'm just going to gently spread it. We're going to see how buildable this is. Just spreading it on my cheeks where the pores give me the most trouble. I'm taking a wet sponge. I'm going to see if this does anything to help, or if it's just going to pull the foundation off the skin. And it's working quite well with the sponge. So, except that my sponge has a little bit of cat fluff on it. But it's definitely blending with a sponge, but I think my first attempt would be with a brush and then just touching it up a little bit with a sponge. So it really is looking good. It's really giving me a very nice light coverage, and it is definitely evening out my skin tone. I'm just making sure that it is blended because, as I say, when it does dry down, if you have any unblended patches, they are going to go a little bit, tiny bit darker. But this is really looking very good for an everyday foundation where you don't want to hide too much. You just want something that is going to look presentable throughout the day. So I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm not going to powder down. I'm going to just leave the makeup to set and not going to add any powder. We're going to see how it performs throughout the day without powder. You could definitely add powder at this stage. I think it would just help to sort of dry down the foundation slightly. It would definitely help me here to minimize my pores, but I don't want anything that's going to end up looking too cakey. So we're just going to leave it at that. It says it does dry down to a matte finish. So taking an eyebrow spoolie, I'm just going to gently clean up my brows. It can, as I say, get stuck in your brows. So it kind of forms, it's a liquid foundation which forms a kind of mousse on the skin, if I can describe it like that. So with those kinds of textures, you do need to be very vigilant about making sure that all the bits and bobs are blended out. But it's definitely giving me, at this stage, it looks like a bit of a satin matte finish. So I'm just going to give it another minute or two to dry down, and then I'm going to go in with some blush and lipstick. So I've given it a minute or two just to dry down. It is still looking like skin, does look like very even toned skin with just a little hint of something on it, and it is quite buildable. The second layer that I put on over my pores seems absolutely fine. It's not looking cakey or anything like that. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of bronzer. I'm taking a blush from Revlon. This is in the shade Naughty Nude, and I just love this for a very light bronzer. So we're going to see how this performs over the foundation, just adding a little bit to the cheeks. Foundation is not moving around at all, so that is a good sign. Still looks pretty much intact. And then I'm going to go in with my MAC blush in Warm Soul. This is the new version. And just going to add a little hint of that to the cheeks to add a little bit of color. So I'm keeping it quite understated today. And this does have a little bit of shimmer in it, this blush, so it'll just kind of offset the mattifying effect of the makeup. But it's not uber matte at this stage. It does have a little bit of life in it, which is quite nice to know. And the blush is really applying beautifully. It's not moving anything around at all. So I'm quite happy with that. And now I'm just going to go in with a little bit of lipstick. And today I'm going in by one from Wet n Wild. And this is in the color Jam With Me. So that's the makeup done. At first glance, I can say it is giving a beautiful kind of satin matte effect on the skin. I can see my skin coming through. I can still see my pores, but it is doing its damnedest to blur them and just to create a smoothing effect. It was very beautiful to apply, very easy to apply. You just need to work quite quickly. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go about my day and I'm going to come back in a few hours and we're going to see how this foundation wears. So I will see you in a bit. Hi guys, so I've had the foundation on for a good 7 hours today. It has been quite an uncharacteristically warm winter's day, so we've had temperatures in the low 20s. I have been out in the sun for a good part of the afternoon, which I think is going to give a good indication of how this foundation wears. So I haven't blotted at all, I haven't touched up at all. The only thing I've touched up is my lipstick. So what have I found? Well, just looking at the foundation, I think it has stood up really well. It definitely hasn't emphasized my pores. It's done a really excellent job of trying to blur them and hasn't settled into my fine lines and wrinkles. There is a little bit of settling around my nose area, but it has stayed intact. So as I say, I haven't blotted at all. With most foundations, even a mattifying foundation, I would need to blot around the 3 or 4 hour mark, or sometimes even earlier than that. So I have got quite a lot of shine on my skin. So I'm going to take a little bit of tissue paper and I'm just going to blot that down and see how that helps the foundation and how that translates. And while I'm doing that, I can tell you there is minimal transfer. So that one is what comes off, and very little foundation at all. It's mostly kind of the oils and a tiny bit of foundation, but not a lot of transfer, not a lot of movement of the foundation, which I really appreciate. So my skin is still looking okay. It's probably not looking as smooth as when I first applied the foundation, but it's really looking good. And the fact that the foundation has just kind of stayed put, hasn't moved around, I really appreciate that. So it really is looking really good. My blush has faded slightly, my bronze has faded slightly, but that is to be expected. But really there's not a great deal of wearing off of the foundation. It's still pretty intact on my nose, even when I was wearing my sunglasses. It is still pretty intact on my chin. So I reckon this has given me a really, really decent amount of wear over a 7 hour period. So I'm really, really impressed with that. So what are my overall thoughts? Well, I have to say, for a mattifying foundation that looks skin-like and doesn't feel like anything on your skin, I think I have to give this probably a 9 out of 10. I think it's done a really excellent job. It's not often you will get a mattifying foundation that just feels like nothing on your skin and just looks really skin-like. I think it's a big ask from any foundation or any brand to deliver something like that. And I really think Clarins have hit the ball out of the park with this one in terms of those deliverables. So I am still getting some texture through the foundation, a little bit of oil, which is very easily blotted away, but it really has remained true to color, bearing in mind it did oxidize slightly on application. but from there on out it was absolutely fine. I didn't see any further oxidization. It really just felt like skin. I wasn't aware that I was wearing anything on my skin. The transfer has really been quite minimal, and I think for a sheer foundation, I think the coverage and what it's trying to do, you're not going to get perfection from a sheer foundation, but I think this is probably as good as it gets. So guys, I am very, very impressed. At last, I have found a Clarins foundation that has impressed me and that really works. So for everyday wear, I would highly recommend this. I think that this is really going to become my kind of work staple. It just looks great on the skin. It doesn't look like you're trying too hard, and it really does tick all the boxes for my normal combination skin. So guys, really, really impressed with this foundation. I would recommend this for normal to combination to oily skins. I wouldn't recommend this if you are dry. I think you are going to find it very drying on your skin. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you've tried this foundation. I'd love to hear from you. I am going to leave you with a link to my review on the Bobbi Brown Skin Longwear Finish Foundation. It's very, very similar to this. It has a very similar coverage and it does very, very similar things. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao.